have news from BMW on a brand new 2025 BMW GS, and this is the 1300 GS Adventure.
Yeah, this is one of the most popular bikes in Colorado. We see them all over the place, and if you want a big, burly adventure bike to take you on long trips anywhere, this is one of the bikes you're gonna need to look at. And it's pretty much all new for 2025. We have a new engine, we have redesigned chassis, all new styling, it looks totally new, and there's a ton of new tech and new features all over this bike as well.
So like the standard R1300 GS that we've had already, this new GS 1300 Adventure is a 1300cc instead of a 1254, so it's bigger bore, it's got a new crankshaft with a reduced stroke, and they say it's the most powerful BMW Boxer ever. 145 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, and both of those power figures are an improvement from last year. So we're up 9 horsepower compared to the old 1250 Adventure GS and up 5 foot-pounds of torque. Bike red lines at 9,000 RPM.
And this bike also has the shift cam technology that allows for some different cam profiles, which is pretty cool depending on how you're riding. It can have a slightly less aggressive setting for the cam so that you're saving a little bit more fuel and you're running a little smoother, they say, and then you can shift over your cam profile to have a more aggressive high performance setting.
Yeah, and even with, the added power, the bigger displacement now, fuel consumption is, according to BMW, identical to the previous generation R1250 GS. So that's good to see. You have a massive 7.9 gallon fuel tank, which is one of the biggest tanks I've seen on any bike.
Yeah,
huge.
It's working into car fuel tank territory.
Yeah, totally.
Not quite there, but
that's bigger than my
tank.
Suzuki Every, actually. It's a gallon bigger than my Suzuki Every. There's a new transmission. So we saw this on the R1300 GS, where instead of the transmission being mounted behind the engine, it's actually underneath. That reduces the overall length, gives you better weight balance, and overall they were able to shave 8.6 pounds off of this total engine package in general. So that's not 8.6 pounds off the whole bike, 8.6 pounds
just
lighter
in the engine.
Just in the engine.
They say the unladen weight is 593 pounds. So this is a beast of a bike. If that wasn't already obvious, these big GSs have always been on the heavy side, and this is no exception.
A lot of people look at this and think, oh, I want to go tackle some gnarly trails. This is the way I've always looked at these bikes, is more of like an overlanding bike where you're going to cover very long distances, nothing too insane as far as terrain goes, but you're able to just load them up with all kinds of equipment, things to keep you on the road for weeks at a time, and they'll take it like a champ.
There's 100% people out there who could ride one of these bikes on aggressive single track and rock it. But that would be hard to do on a bike that's 600 pounds. There's no other way around it. Yep. So yeah, more fire roads and that kind of thing, especially around here in Colorado. There's a lot of awesome paths like that you could take a bike like this on. And part of the reason that this motorcycle is on the heavy side is because it has an insane tech suite. So starting with some of the riding modes, you've got standard, road, rain, eco, and enduro modes. So those are pretty self-explanatory: enduro for off-road, eco for saving fuel, rain for slippery conditions, and road for your standard road riding. But you could also do ride modes pro, which adds dynamic pro, and enduro pro. And those pro modes are also adjustable. This bike also has ABS Pro, and part of that ABS Pro system is that both your brake on the handlebar and your foot brake are linked brakes. So either brake lever that you hit is going to apply braking force to both the front and rear brakes.
Yeah, so tons and tons of ride modes and safety tech. There's a lot more too, but BMW is always the king of this, is giving you a base model bike and then allowing you to add all these different packages on. One of those packages is the new automated shift assistant, which we actually did a full video on a couple weeks ago. So if you want to know all the ins and outs on how this works and what it's all about, go check out that separate video. But basically what this means is it's a 6-speed manual transmission, but you can add this package on it and have clutchless operation. Basically, you still can manually select the gears. It will kick in and kind of automatically shift for you when needed, but just gives you one less thing to think about, which is especially nice on a bike that you're going to cover long distances like this. And even though you and me talk about, us not preferring these kinds of systems, sometimes they do sell well. So
yeah, and it's a great thing to have available. It's not like they're forcing you to get this system. If you want an R1300 GS Adventure, you can get just a standard clutch-operated transmission on this bike, of course. But if that's not something that you want, then this system, it uses all these actuators and everything, and you can put it in a mode D, where it will choose the shifts for you, or you can even put it in an M mode where you use a little lever to select what gear you want to move to at a certain time, but you're not going to have a clutch lever. And it's one less thing to think about if that's something that you want. It's just twist and go.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hopefully give this a try at some point.
Be interesting to test it.
Yeah, I've spent a decent amount of time, I'd say, on Honda's DCT. We've had a few bikes around with that, and it wasn't my favorite system. I thought
it works well.
It does work well. I thought once in a while it would take over a little more often than I'd like it to, but curious to see what this is like. Hopefully we'll get some seat time on it.
Yeah, now they've also given this bike a new stiffer frame. There's also more suspension travel, which is always nice to have. 8.3 inches front travel, 8.7 rear. That's 0.8 more than the R1300 GS, just the standard model, and that's a lot of travel, to be honest. Also, an optional electronic dynamic suspension adjustment. So you can adjust the damping and the spring rate as well as the load compensation, which is nice for a bike that you're probably going to load up with a lot of gear and go maybe on a longer haul with. So there's some optional adjustability with that.
Yeah, you throw a passenger on the back, you don't need to pull out any wrenches and start twisting things on your shock. It just recognizes that there's more weight on there, throw some luggage on, take luggage off, does everything for you, and it will keep the bike nice and balanced. Also, part of that, besides just the load compensation, is adaptive height control. So when you come down to a slow speed, it will drop 1.2 inches. So we did a video on the Harley Davidson, the Pan America, that has a similar system. And it's really cool. It worked in the background. It made it a lot easier to get your feet on the ground. So yeah, cool to see. There's another version, another setting that will lower it another 0.8 inches further. So a total of 2 inches lower. And that gets the seat height down to a pretty impressive 32.3 inches on a big bike like this.
Still not a super low seat height, but considering the size of the bike and what it'll pick back up to, it's not bad, 32.3. It is a heavy motorcycle, so if you're a shorter rider, I don't think there's any way around it. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky bike as far as seat height and weight, but 32.3 is not bad.
There's also a newly designed telelever system, and this system's always been kind of one of the main selling points of the GS, the way the suspension works and it's all bolted together. We could do a whole video diving into this, and we probably wouldn't even explain it fully.
No, we're not engineers.
No, but basically they took some of the best parts of the sportier telelever systems and some of the best parts of the off-road designed telelever systems, combined them together, and now they think they have one of the best systems out there. Gives you really good steering precision. It's supposed to transmit the steering forces through the bars a lot better, so you can actually feel what's going on instead of it being softened out.
They've also got new cross-spoke wheels, a 19-inch wheel in the front, 17-inch wheel in the rear, so pretty standard stuff there. Forged Enduro wheels are also an available option. And then, of course, more and more tech. So LED lighting on this bike is standard. You've got auxiliary lights in the front, and your turn signals are integrated into the handguards, which is also really cool. But you've also got the option for an adaptive headlight, which will turn with you as you lean into corners. Always a cool thing to have. And you've got a big 6.5-inch TFT.
Yeah, so I say this in every BMW video, their software is just killing it. One of my buddies just bought an S1000 R, and I was playing around with the screen on that and the controls, and it's all so intuitive. It looks so good. The screen always has like a nice anti-glare coating on it, so I'm sure the screen is going to follow that same trend and just be really, really good. The headlight's cool. I like the hello and goodbye sequences that you kind of display when you walk up to it. I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, so it's funny. There's actually a number of things on this bike. Obviously, BMW also makes cars. So a lot of cars these days are doing a hello or goodbye sequence. I think BMW is calling it a welcome and a goodbye. And that kind of follows with what a lot of cars are doing. Also, this bike has adaptive cruise control, which a lot of other bikes are starting to get in line with, but very common in cars these days. You've also got forward collision warning with brake intervention on this bike. Very car-like. And that is one that, look, not to be against technology. I think technology should make its way into these bikes. I think it's a good thing in general. But I think we've all been in a situation before where a vehicle will think that you're coming up on the back of another vehicle that's maybe in the lane next to you, but a little over, and have had it grab the brakes for you. So the brake intervention part of this forward collision warning system is something that I'd just be interested to test out. And then this bike also has blind spot monitoring. So a lot of very car-like features. You can also get heated seats for the rider and the passenger. So a lot of really nice tech on this bike. So much tech.
Yeah, I think the blind spot monitoring is awesome. Just one less time you have to, whip your head back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool feature. The brake intervention, I agree with everything you said. We'll have to see how it actually works, but just like you said, I mean, I've had times where I'm backing into a parking spot and all of a sudden it'll recognize the curb and it'll slam on the brakes, or you're coming up to an overpass on the highway and it thinks that's something you're going to hit and it slams on the brakes.
And it's one thing when that happens on four wheels. It's a whole other thing when it happens on two.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, especially if I'm thinking if you got a passenger on the back and it grabs the brakes, it could end bad, but hopefully they've put a lot of time and engineering and testing into this system. Hopefully it's not a problem.
And it's worth mentioning too that on this bike, and like with other GSs, not only is there all of this technology and then some, I mean, you can get super into the weeds. Their press release for this bike is like 30 pages long. It takes forever to read. But besides what we've kind of summarized and condensed into this, there's also a bunch that you can do as far as adjusting the ergonomics. There's a lot of accessories that you can put on these bikes. So what really stands out about this GS is just how much they've done to not only give you a lot of tech to keep you comfortable, but there's tons of ways that you can set up this bike specifically for yourself, specifically how you want to use it. And that's really cool. You can tailor this motorcycle in a huge way to your specific use case, which is really nice.
All right, so there's a few different models that the GS Adventure will come in. So you have the base model. There's also the triple black, which we've had a triple black BMW at the office. Yep. It was a super cool look. So yeah, tons of blacked out components, murdered out look, super metallic paint scheme on it. It's a sweet look. You also have the Trophy, which I think is the best looking one. That's the classic red, white, and blue color scheme. Gives you powder-coated parts, some color-matched parts, some stone guard grills so you keep the rocks out of your radiators, smaller windscreen, passenger grab handles, some luggage mounts, and a flatter seat as opposed to the kind of two-part seat you see on the rest of the models.
Yeah, and you've also got an option 719 version of it that comes in green, and it gives you some gold lines. You've got some milled parts on it, gold anodized wheels, gold handlebars. You get heated seats, which are always nice, luggage rack, and what they call the sport windscreen. So few different options where you can kind of select you're going to have to pick one of those models to start building your bike off of. And then, of course, like we mentioned throughout the rest of the video, there's tons of ways that you can then change some of those options and add even more things to the bikes.
Yeah, so let us know down in the comments which one you would go for and how you'd spec it out, which packages you would go for. If you're interested in grabbing one of these bikes, it's going to be rolling out Q4 of 2024, so the end of this year. And we don't have pricing just yet. That'll be announced a little later this year. But we do know that the older model, the R1250 GS Adventure, base MSRP was right around $21,000, just under 21 actually, $20,745. So yeah, probably going to see a little bit of a price hike from there with, newly developed engine, newly developed bodywork, all this tech and everything. But hopefully we won't see it creep up too much more beyond that.
Not an inexpensive bike, but it's also a big bike with a lot of power and a lot of tech, even standard, a lot of engineering going on here. So these big GSs are some of the most popular bikes, if not the most popular bike in this category for good reason. And hopefully we'll get a chance to throw a leg over one sometime soon. Test it out in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Hope everyone had a good July 4th and is enjoying the holiday weekend. We're excited we get to bring you this news on the holiday. Wearing my Stars and Stripes shirt. This is the only Independence Day shirt I have, so had to throw it on for this video. Thanks for watching. Check out alltfl.com, and we'll see you in the next video.